Hello, welcome to Shrink Wrap. I'm Szifra Birke and delighted to have with me today Ann Jolles, and we'll tell you about Ann in just a second. I want to acknowledge that my co-host Edna Lazat was not able to be with us today because she has no voice.
Oh, I'm going to miss her. She's one of my Grace Trail buddies from a long time ago.
That's it. And the person who brought your book.
Yeah, she brought my book to like Croatia or someplace.
Some exotic place,
yes,
and used it
yes,
all the time.
Yes.
And that was Rise and
She
Shine
loved it.
Anytime.
That's right.
We're not talking about Rise
No.
and Shine Anytime today, though. We're
Right.
talking about the fact that you have founded the Grace Trail.
Yes.
And before I even get there,
Yeah.
I want to do a proper intro.
Okay,
so
go
sit
for
back
it.
and
Okay.
enjoy.
Oh, I can't wait to hear about
just,
me, so go on.
There you go.
Maybe I'll learn something new.
There you go. Well, you probably know that you won a really important award in 2013 as Life Coach of the Year for the
Yes.
International Coaching
I
Federation.
knew that. I was there for that one.
You were there for that.
Yes.
And you know that you're the author of 3 books.
Yes.
And the newest one
Yes.
is Find Your Footing,
Find your footing.
which we'll hopefully talk more about
Yep.
during this show.
Yep.
What else should we know? We should know that you are a life coach,
Yep.
and that's your, as far as I know you, and our audience doesn't know that we're colleagues and friends, have
Right.
become friends.
Right.
And I've gotten to be coached by you as well. So I know that a big part of what you do is you really help people figure out what they want to be doing to make their lives more meaningful, more significant, so that as many mornings as possible they wake up feeling like they matter, life matters, and this isn't just marking time.
Right.
That time is a finite resource,
Right.
and we really want to be using it well.
Right.
And that one of the things that excites me about your work is that you're really, in my mind, Ann, you're really an innovator. You know, the fact that you created a whole process, the grace process, which
Yes.
again we'll talk about. Maybe can we just like touch real briefly?
We can go wherever you want to go.
Okay,
Yep.
so for the moment we'll just talk about the fact that the grace process consists really simply
Yeah.
of 5 kinds of major, let's call them questions,
Yeah.
things to ponder,
Right.
and our audience can see these beautiful beach rocks that you brought.
That's right.
Because you're also an artist, and of course the
Yeah.
table looks better when you're on the show than any other time.
I always have to bring something to look at. You know that. Yeah.
That's right. So G is for?
G is for gratitude. And so the question that naturally flows from the gratitude word is, what am I grateful for?
Right.
And R is for release, or as in, what can I let go of or release? A is accept. What's calling out in my life for acceptance? C is challenge. What's my next challenge? And E is, what can I embrace as possible in my life?
Right. And so the lovely thing about this process is that people can start anywhere.
They can start anywhere. Yep.
There's no, you don't need to start with G,
No.
and you don't need to end with E.
Right.
And if people want to know more, stay tuned.
Yeah, that's
because we'll keep talking
That's
about
right.
this.
That's right. Yes.
And the Grace Trail emanated from the Grace process.
Yes.
So is there anything I've left out that's important for people to know first off about you?
Well, I think it's important to say that I've been a life coach for 14 years. Because as you know, anyone can call themselves a coach. It's a very new industry. And I've been working at this for 14 years. I'm certified with the International Coach Federation of New England. That's where I got my Life Coach of the Year award last year. It's a very exciting organization, and I love my profession. And it's kind of hard because really, right about now, everyone's calling themselves a coach. And there's lots of great coaches doing that, but it's nice that I have a long history of 14 years of doing this. So I bring lots of experience, lots of tools, lots of great stuff to the table.
Yeah, and I would add to that that you have the 14 years as an official life coach.
Yes.
And that prior to that, not that you don't look like you're just 35, but we could probably guess you have a few
why I
more
love you.
years.
few more years,
there
yeah.
may be a few more years in there where you had professions that in some ways lent themselves to a certain kind of life coaching, right?
Absolutely. I was an occupational therapist decades ago, so yes.
Right.
Yes, I would say all roads were leading here.
Yes.
That's what I'd say.
So I would say yes, you have the foundation, you had the foundation of being a life coach, and then officially became a life coach, learned some even more tools.
Right.
And one of the things I respect is that you keep learning.
I keep learning, that's right.
And that's an important thing for you.
Yeah, it really is.
So let's move on to the Grace Trail.
Okay.
So the Grace Trail, walk, wander, wonder.
That's right.
Yeah.
That sums up the Grace Trail. It's simple and 3 simple words: walk, wander, and wonder.
All right.
Yes.
And one can do that on a real trail in Plymouth, Mass.
Yes, yes.
And one can do that sitting in a chair in their kitchen.
Anywhere. You can walk the Grace Trail literally anywhere, anytime, with anyone. You just have to know the 5 questions. And then you ask them either of yourself and then listen for the answer, or with someone else. You ask them and then you listen to their answer. So it's a process of asking the questions and then really being present to what answer shows up.
Yeah. And you and your husband, John, did exactly that many years ago, right? Can you tell us something about that?
This process has actually evolved over 10 years, if you can imagine that. And 10 years ago, my husband and I and our family, we ran into a really tough patch. And I found that I lost my bounce, my balance, and my breath. And I was really floundering. And I kept saying to myself, I really need to step into a state of grace. And I didn't mean anything religious by that. What I actually was picturing, like I was in this swirling storm, and I was trying to get to the eye of the storm where I know it's calmer, more peaceful, and I could think and live from that spot. And that's when I saw the 5 words. I saw gratitude, release, accept, challenge, and embrace. And I started asking the 5 questions that flow from those 5 words. And so I'd, throughout the day, call my husband, say, just listen to this, and he'd thankfully listen to me. And then one night he came home from work, he said, let's go do Grace together. I said, that's awesome. And that summer, we walked around the block every single night after work, and we'd ask and we'd answer the 5 questions. And every time we did that, we felt that we went from a state of worry or despair to a place of more hope, where more was possible. And so for the past 10 years, I've really been studying the whole concept of grace, broken down in a really realistic, practical 5 steps for how do you walk from worry to more into what's possible. How do you do that? And so I've been sharing that in workshops and webinars. My first book, Rise and Shine Anytime, is a collection of all the Grace questions.
Right, that's the one that Edna
took
and
to her workshop somewhere wonderful.
Right.
Yeah, and shared it, and they loved it.
And keeps in her, I think, keeps in her car, and when she feels that kind of angsty sort of thing that can come over us anytime, she just opens to a random page, and it's these questions are very centering questions.
They're very centering. Yeah. I like to say, or what I've heard from people is, because I say they're simple questions, and they say, Ann, they're not easy answers. They might be simple questions. Yeah. And I think that's true, because this Grace Trail and the Grace process is built on curiosity. So you're actually able to start a conversation with yourself or with someone else that's built on curiosity, because every single step is a question. Mm-hmm. And questions bring us beyond what we already know. So this process is actually a process that you can learn more about your life while you're living your life.
Wow.
Yep.
So you're saying that the questions bring you a kind of introspection, where we don't usually take the time to look inside.
Right.
And the question, if you're curious and wait for the answer, gives you clues about what's important to you, or who you are, or what you need right then.
Exactly. Yeah. And you know, what my husband and I realized when we were doing that thing 10 years ago was we hadn't really been listened to, or we hadn't really listened to another the entire day.
Wow.
You know, you get so busy doing and so busy, and then you have distractions, and at that point we had, well, both of my parents were actually passing away very close to each other in time, and we had 2 very creative, challenging teenagers. So we didn't have a minute in the day. We were doing something constantly, and this was really almost like our little sanctuary. And I realize now, looking back, we were actually walking the Grace Trail, because for us, it's very effective when we're actually walking and talking versus sitting. I find it much, I almost find the walking a magical part of it, because when we're out, nature gives you distractions, and there are people, and it gets you sort of off the stuff that you might be stuck on in your life, or stuck on in that moment, to possibly finding a different perspective, or thought.
Yeah, yeah. So that's the walking is a nice segue to the actual trail. And how did you get the inspiration for the trail?
It's a great question. 2 years ago, when my son was in Afghanistan, I read an article about the Appalachian Mountain Trail. And in the article, there was a question, well, who's hiking the trail? And someone said it's a lot of vets, they're walking off their war. I love that. They're walking off their war. And so I said to myself, oh my gosh, is there a place where I could go and walk off my war every day? Is there a place where anyone could access, where they could go walk off their worries? And that's when the Grace Trail just came to me. And I said, what if I create a trail that people can actually come to and walk from worry, I call it, to wonderful. And so I created a trail down in Plymouth, Massachusetts, an actual trail.
And maybe Pete could show people that trail right now.
Yeah.
Because you provided us a picture so that people could see the trail.
That's and the actual trail.
There it is.
Yes. And
simple, curious way to begin a conversation around inspiration, hope, and resiliency. We haven't talked about resiliency. You have to just show up and ask the questions.
Anywhere,
that is, and it's beautiful.
anytime.
I actually walked it with you and a friend of mine who was visiting.
And the grass was 4 feet high. I mean, we actually were almost walking through a tunnel as we all chatted and asked each other the questions.
Right.
And so if I get back to how it all evolved.
Yes, thanks.
So that's how it came, when I had that sort of inspirational thought. And so I created the trail in Plymouth, where anyone can go anytime and walk it. And I have so many wonderful Grace Trail stories, Szifra. It's like, really fun.
What's a wonderful Grace Trail story?
First of all, my rocks got stolen. These rocks I have, I put out. I either paint them myself or I have an artist help me. And so the trail is marked. There are trail markers that are natural. They put them down. And so as you walk the trail, you'll see G. And people can look at the maps on their phone. You can, if you go to my website, it says, here's the map. You can read it from your phone, or you can print the map. And I've put them throughout town and things like that. So as you walk along...
When you said, you started to say, so the rocks got stolen.
Oh yes, so the rocks. Okay, but these are the rocks. These rocks, you helped me carry these here. These are big rocks that I've found at the beach, and they've all been, you know, smooth and rounded by the ocean. And so people stole them, like on a regular basis. The G was actually stolen every day for a month. And what they were doing was putting it in the woods, and so every day for a month I was rescuing it.
So it wasn't exactly stolen, it was moved.
Oh, no, that one was moved. The A was stolen 4 times, and it's now been returned twice. So I make up this story. I say, I think it was a teenage girl named Alice, or Amy, or Annie, who said, oh, look at this great little rock with an A on it. She puts it on her bureau, and I see her mother or father come in and say, oh, that's really cool. Where'd you get it? And so they look up Grace Trail, and the parent says, you mean you took the rock from a parent who put a trail down for her son who's in Afghanistan? So the rocks have come back twice, which is so funny. And I don't really know what happened. I made that one up. But that's sort of how I picture it. But last week I was walking it, and I was walking with my dog Willie. And I wasn't really thinking. I was just out on the trail, because I'm out on the trail a lot anyway. It runs right by Plymouth Harbor. It's a spectacular, inspirational spot. And I noticed these little, they were probably 10 or 11 girls in front of me, and their little ponytails were going back and forth.
10 or 11-year-old girls?
10 or 11-year-old girls. And they're chatting and having fun like only girls 10 or 11 do. And one says, is that one? No, how about over there? Is that one? So finally I said, what are you girls looking for? And they said, oh, we're looking for grace rocks. I said, really? What's a grace rock? And they said, well, we found the G rock, we found the R rock, the A, and the E, but we can't find the C anywhere. I said, wow, what does it stand for? What do those stand for? So I'm sort of playing along because I can't believe how informed these girls are. They said, well, it stands for gratitude, release, accept, challenge, and embrace. I said, how do you know that? We went on the website with my mother, and she read it to us, and we read about this woman whose son was in Afghanistan. She created this trail for everyone. I said, well, I'm the Grace Trail lady. And they were like, oh my God, we've wanted to meet you. And so they reach in their pockets, and they said, we have something for you. And they pull out rocks that they made. And they said, we made rocks for the Grace Trail. Can we put them down at every letter? Yes, exactly.
Wow.
It was wow. So I picked up I wish I'd brought one. So they had painted hearts on rocks. So the hearts are on one side, and if you turn it over, it says inspired in 10-year-old writing. And so I said, oh, this is like the nicest thing anyone's ever done for me today. Let me tell you, how nice is that? I said, I would love you to put the rocks down. So as I walk the trail these days, I look and I see their little rocks are there, and other people are taking inspirational items and they're leaving them. Like the clamshell you can see over there, people are putting clamshells and putting little rocks in, or the rocks that I now put down. I actually, my sister's an artist, and so she's been working on, I gave you a little present there, Szifra. It's a bag of Grace Trail rocks.
Right.
And so these also have been collected from the ocean, and they're beautiful and well-rounded. I call them stones of hope. People say to me, is that a worry stone? I say, no, these are stones of hope. And they're nice
that's
to
so interesting.
feel. Yes.
That is a real microcosm of you.
It is.
Yeah, don't you think, someone else would label the worry stone thinking they were saying something hopeful, right? You rub the worry stone so you don't have the worry, but that doesn't quite satisfy you.
No.
You want it to be stated in that positive, hopeful, forward-moving
Well,
direction.
if you have a choice
So
between negative
Yeah.
and positive, I'm always going positive.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
so,
it's interesting.
It is interesting. So you can see that, so people...
These are very lovely.
Well, ever since we started putting those out, I said, why don't I put little stones out that they can take, and maybe they'll leave my big stones. So it worked. So I put out rocks every week, and it's increasing the amount of rocks I need to put out every week, which is a joy to me, because I picture people taking these stones of hope and taking them home, and I hope being inspired, or I got a note on my Facebook page, my Grace Trail Facebook page, and it was a woman who said, Ann, I've been walking the trail for the past year, and I've been very sad walking it because I'm walking with my spouse who has Alzheimer's, and he walks with me. And she said, ever since I've discovered the Grace Trail stones, I carry them with me. And she said, it really elevates me. It takes me from a negative to starting to ask questions about what's going right in my life, what's in my control, what can I change. And that was my hope for the Grace Trail, was for this to just very quietly and organically spread so people find it and enjoy it. And my mission is really to bring inspiration, hope, and resiliency to people.
Yeah. And to bring it not just to people who can walk the trail in Plymouth.
Right.
But am I right that you have a bigger vision? We haven't had the chance to talk about this yet.
Yes.
So maybe, what is your hope or your vision for what else beyond Plymouth? What happens to the Grace Trail?
Well, the Grace Trail is already going places. It's very interesting. Next week I'm going to be at Dana-Farber. I work with a group of cancer survivors there. I'm a cancer survivor. My husband, I just have to tell you that little bit, is a cancer survivor. So I go into Dana-Farber and I work with cancer survivors in there. And I'm going to be there next week, and we're going to walk the Grace Trail at Dana-Farber in their facility. And there's a whole process I set up to engage the entire group in meeting each other and asking the questions and listening to each other's answers. And so...
So when you say walk the Grace Trail at Dana-Farber, do you mean get up and move?
Yes, I do.
And will there be like an area that's a G area and an R area, or do you mean we'll get up and, not we, but
I would love someday, they have a beautiful Zen garden. I would love someday for there to be a Grace Trail right in their garden. I'd love to see Grace Trails in cancer centers, addiction centers, hospitals. I'd love them in corporations.
Yeah.
So next week what I'm going to do is, it's really a virtual Grace Trail, meaning we'll get up in a circle and there'll be an inner circle and we'll just stand and look eye to eye with one person at a time, ask and answer, then you move to the next one.
Yeah.
So I may bring the stones if I feel really
strong,
like I can schlep them that day. I'll bring them, but if not, we'll use something very simple, because you don't need the stones.
Right.
You just need the questions, and you need a desire to learn more about each other or yourself.
Yeah, yeah. So it's intriguing to think about the application of this. So you've named a lot of possibilities. All of a sudden I'm thinking that people could bring you in, right? Corporations could bring you in. What a team building, what an interesting team building kind of experience this would be.
Yes.
As well as family reunions, the kinds of questions that people don't really think to ask each other. Intergenerational. Like I could imagine, you know, when my grandchildren are, you know, 10, that we could have all of us asking these questions of each other, the 3 generations. Right?
Well, look at those 10-year-old girls.
Exactly.
They loved it. They said, "You inspire us." I was like, and it's just by simply asking the questions. And I always say whenever I give a workshop, you can pass. You know, there's no forcing. We don't want people to be uncomfortable. We want an openness to come as a student, come as a learner, to learn about your own life. That's the conversation I love to be in.
Yeah. So when you told me and our audience the story of the girls, you said there are so many stories. Is there another story that stands out for you?
Yes, there is.
Okay.
I got an email from actually a colleague in Texas, and she wrote to me and said, "Ann, I just walked the Grace Trail." She was out in Texas. She was having a really difficult time with a relationship, and her girlfriend was also having a difficult time in a relationship, and they went on a hike. She said, "So we brought you a map, and every time we had a switchback on the trail, we'd sit down and we'd ask another question." And she said, "We loved it." And my friend kept saying, "Where'd you hear about this? This is so awesome." And they both felt that by walking the process, that first of all, they learned so much more about each other that they didn't know. You really get to be, can be very intimate what you learn about each other. So there's, you know, you have to trust the person that you're asking and answering with.
Right.
And they felt, again, that they went from a state of worry to one much more of what's possible in life.
Yeah. So let's have Pete bring up the map.
That's a great idea.
And because it would help me to look at it.
Okay.
And so there's a start here, a start and an end.
Yes.
And we see these lowercase letters.
Yep.
So the people that you just described, they walked, and at every switchback they sat down and they asked the question that correlated with the letter.
Yes, that's exactly right.
So if you and I went out after this show and we were going to take a walk somewhere and we carried this map with us, we would start, and I might ask you, so what would my question be to you? What might be, I can cheat here because I think I have questions, but well, apparently not. So
the first question is a lovely question. It's, what am I grateful for? And when I actually walked the trail with a yoga school, the Sanctuary Studio in Plymouth, Mass. had a yoga school for girls and teenagers.
Yeah.
So she brought 10 girls down and 10 young women down to the trail.
Yeah.
And we all walked the trail together. So when I talk to young people, I might not say, "What are you grateful for?" But I have other G words, like I'll say, like, what's going right in your life? How can we gather more good stuff in our life? What are the gifts you bring to the world? I mean, there's so many juicy G questions that you can sort of use language that's not so academic or maybe off-putting to them.
Yeah,
and they
or
just
to other people.
Or to other people,
Right.
exactly.
So we could come up with, if gratitude didn't sound right to my ear that day, then I might be like, what's
going right?
What's going right?
I always said that to my kids. What's going right? What what's going right
So
today?
can I share one?
Yeah,
That
please do.
That
Yes.
jumped right into my head.
I love it. What is it?
So can it be as simple as last night I got this call from my oldest granddaughter, Rachel, who was 7 yesterday, and I had a voicemail, both at home and on my cell, that said, "Grandma, I really want to talk to you."
Oh, nothing better than that.
How grateful, I was like,
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
she wanted to tell me about Alexander and the No Good, Very Bad, Terrible Day movie, and her birthday.
Does she recommend it? Do we need
She
to
does.
go see it?
She does recommend it.
Maybe we should go.
Yes, that's right. So is that the kind of thing that in that moment, something that just lifts you up?
Absolutely. Okay, look at you, lifts you up. That's why this process makes sense, because if you do ask the questions, you start from a platform of positivity. You all of a sudden get a little toehold in positivity, and you get an upward spiral going.
Yes.
So instead of, we all are really familiar with the negative downward spiral. We know that really well.
Right.
This process starts with positive energy and asks you to go inside and think about what's going right in your life.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden your feet sort of center on what's going right and what's strong. And that's why the stones of hope, that's a positive way of looking at.
Right. And at the same time, even though we have literally under 3 minutes, what I also like is that there's a realism that's a little challenging too. Like, what do I need to let go of?
Let go of, yes.
What do I need to release?
Yes.
And does that mean I need to release my worry that as teenagers there's going to be a drug problem for one of my 3 grandchildren?
Yeah.
Does that, because that doesn't serve me to worry about that. So it requires me, again, to think and to be honest with myself, and there's positive momentum from letting go of that, right?
Oh,
and
the
reminder,
right?
The reminder.
And it's funny because there's all kinds of different kinds of letting go, and that's what I use in my workshops. But for something like that, what I'd say is just put it to the side. You have that worry with teenagers, and you'll always have that worry. But instead of having it right here, let's just put it over there and know that's a possibility, and that's a form of letting go too.
Right, right.
Yes.
That's a good point. It doesn't have to be all or nothing.
No, it doesn't mean like, okay,
it's not
I'm
so
never
naive
thinking about
that,
right.
No, right,
no,
right.
No, there's all different degrees of letting go, and sometimes just being able to put it to the side for a while is a huge relief.
Yeah.
And when you do let go, then there's room opens up for other things to appear.
Right.
Yeah.
So in our very last minute or so,
okay,
I know that we had lots of things that we were talking about.
Right.
Possibly you gave me this lovely list of questions, and I don't know if there's something that's in your mind that you'd like to close with? Or
I'd love to my dream is to have grace trails all over the country. I'd love one on Spectacle Island in the middle of Boston Harbor. How cool would that be to take a sunset cruise? Let's go walk the Grace Trail. I'd love a grace trail in corporations, as I said before. I would love this to be accessible to all. Possibly go across the country and have different grace trail walks for a cause. I don't know where it's going to go, but I do know one thing: it's going.
yeah,
It's
moving.
It's moving.
It's walking.
It has life. Yes.
Has legs.
It has life and legs. It's on the trail. The Grace Trail has taken off, and where it goes, I don't know, but it's very exciting.
Good.
And I'm so glad to be back here with you again.
Well, I have 2 quick things, and I don't know if I'll have time for them. But one of the things we were going to talk about is flounder forward.
Oh, floundering forward. Okay.
And floundering forward, and I just want to say that in case we do another show, we could do it almost on that. And the other is Find Your Footing, which sounds the opposite.
Right.
But it's available. That's your book, and
That's
it's available on Kindle.
Yes.
And the profits go to the Wounded Warrior Foundation?
Project. Wounded Warrior Project, yeah.
So in the 30 seconds or so,